So I think I should say this now. Tahuti was my teacher when it came to getting into the learning about the high world, I guess you can call it, and how to actually manifest money on the high road. And Tahuti always comes with as a group with a male as a head. And Tahuti like actually was my teacher and got me broadcasted on um, national radio a while ago, like years ago, and that was like my first project. And he taught me as a male how to actually move on the high road and manifest money a certain type of way without having to have products, um, services, and things that you have to hold and walk around with, but at the same time, like not being based and housed or stuck at a certain location or like having an office or a place like where you do business at, like whether it's like, say, for instance, you're into telemarketing or whatever the case may be, you have a location. It taught me how to actually manifest outside of all of that, and that over time, because Tahuti is an interesting entity. Again, manifested to me in the person. I've never actually done a video on Tahuti purposefully because when he first came to me with certain promises and things that I made to him and them. I'm going to start off by saying to him and them because Tahuti's is, if you study him and get into his doctrine or their doctrine or even her doctrine, becomes a hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite, depending on how you want to look at it. But that's a whole nother story. But Tahuti essentially becomes, even on certain levels, somewhat of a asexual being or shapeshifter, even being able to manifest as women and men. However, Tahuti always has a group. It's always usually a male with a group of women. And that's how Tahuti manifested to me as a male with a group of women as a teacher. Tahuti at the time taking on various different names and spellings of that name, meaning that there are some teachers that represent Tahuti and they use the spelling with the T, and then there are some teachers that go into using the D as the lettering, and it's a reason for that too, which is going into like financial understanding, because Tahuti is the one that actually teaches you about being conscious and being rich, like this whole doctrine of having knowledge and being wealthy and being able to actually like manifest and have money for yourself. This comes from the school of Thoth, or the school of, you some people call them Thoth, but it's actually uh, properly called the school of Tahuti, and learning about these certain universal laws that, if mastered, will teach you how to master this reality. So Tahuti functions as a spiritual lawyer slash doctor. Tahuti is a dope deity because he's like a spiritual, and she, because I'm going to get into the female aspect in a second. But like I said, I learned about the broadcasting and advertising essentially from a conscious perspective, because I always knew about marketing and advertising, mind you, before my acquaintance with Tahuti. But I learned about how to actually promote myself on a spiritual level and manifest money through my acquaintance and meeting on a physical realm now with Tahuti and taking on certain commitments and things of that nature from studying up under that particular entity. And over time, I made certain promises about cleanliness and detoxing and things of that nature, of which I finally have gotten into. That, if mastered, you're supposed to become a millionaire. Once you go through these rituals or whatever, and physically go through these rituals, you're supposed to become a millionaire. And This is like the only way to actually manifest to become a millionaire and still be conscious. This is what I'm getting at, is to go through Tahuti. See, there's no millionaires outside of like on a conscious level. You're not going to make it there without getting into some form of an Illuminati and selling your soul, unless you go through the school of Tahuti, right? So this is how he taught me. Like, you don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to necessarily do physical sex rituals, even though sex rituals are required with making physical contact, and even that's on certain levels can be outmastered, meaning that you can have sex on a physical level and still not call it physical contact, which is a very high level of sex um, that you can actually do. But going into this, like Tahuti teaches all of these sexual arts and like how to actually manifest from it. So like on a mundane level, when you talk about like, see, people don't know this though, but like when you talk about like a lot of like people making money from the streets through sex, whether it's, I mean, I don't want to use any type of legal, so-called legal terms, but people that's making money through their sexuality, however you're doing, whether it's dancing, whatever the case, because still making money through your sexuality, whether you're dancing. This comes from, to master that and to actually make it through that, you make a commitment at one point. You know what I'm saying? You got to think about that when you manifest money that way. You make a soul contract or a promise that has to be totally turned over and fulfilled. And the only way to make it through that is to go through Tahuti as a deity and to understand his and her way on a monetary level, as well as on a sexual, spiritual level, as far as like dealing with your Kundalini, and then on a cleanliness level, as far as detoxing physically, not just spiritually. Like anybody, like people fast, and that's a form of detoxing. And we got a lot of raw foodists and vegans and stuff like that. But Tahuti will take you into a form of a detox that's like outward detox, or like a form of exercise that's designed to make you manifest a certain amount of money. This is when you get into deities like with Tahuti, help you to understand his and her doctrine. So when I first, I mean, saying this for a reason. So when I first got on, I guess you could say the air, is what you want to call it. Tahuti's an air entity too as well. That's why he's such a dope entity. He has totally skill over the air and earth elements. And I first got into on air was through Tahuti, one of my first major albums. I mean, I had smaller, of course, times when I was on air, different interviews and stuff. But one of my biggest interviews was through someone named Tehuti, and interviewed me and taught me a lot of stuff too on the side. And I made certain promises to Tehuti through that particular entity or that brother that I had to fulfill. And I finally, years later, here it is. This happened back in what? So I'll say this is about 12 years ago. So here it is, 12 years later, finally able to say I turned over on some of the stuff, not all of it, but some of the major points that he taught me or whatever, as far as like, you got to take this thing when you get on here and make money off of it, and don't let them tell you that it's free and stuff like that. Like when you get on these free broadcasts and free, like, it's your responsibility. This is a business. Like, these tools on the internet were given to you for you to manifest. If you got to think of people like Amazon is making all of this money off of a blueprint on the internet that was probably designed by another company. You got to think about that. Like, the CEO of Amazon is not sitting around designing scripts and doing this and doing all the intricate work to run a business. Everything's contracted off, right? So if they're able to manifest all this money on a mundane level, we know they take their initiations and oaths. We know that. I mean, on a spiritual level to do certain stuff. But on a spiritual level, you can do the same stuff too, but you're going to take initiations and oaths. And the only way to go through it on a spiritual level, to stay clean from my research, and it's still rough because I still haven't made the money level that Thoth, I promised Thoth I would make a certain amount of money. I still haven't reached that, even though I've made a lot of money doing this. Like, to me, from what I came from, which was nothing. But I still haven't made what I said I would make to him yet. But where I have gotten on a credit level, which is respected definitely by Thoth when it's financed, because Thoth believes in credit. In the school of Tehuti, I'm saying Thoth as a translation because it's really Tehuti. Tehuti believes in credit as finance, though. So like, it's one thing to just say like, okay, I got a credit. Finance is like you got several credit cards and you're doing something with them versus I got a credit card and it's I got one limit, it's 2,000. You just bragging. I got another credit card with like 1,000 limit. I got this. I could basically just go out and buy just about anything. That's credit. That's one level. But Thoth Tahuti teaches you finance, doing something with that. Where is this money going? Things of that nature. So I was able to actually get to a point to where now we are actually contractually tied into some deep contracts with the bandwidth on the internet, which is major when you talk about moving any type of monetization and units through the internet, whether it's across seas. People take stuff like this for granted, like money is transfers and stuff. Like when you guys get on uh, PayPal, or some people that have forgot that other name of that the GoFundMe, and get all of this Cash App, and all of these different apps. You got to take for granted all of this is still being exchanged as a digital exchange. Anything going through the phone or internet's in the waves. There's bandwidth involved in that, and this is where 13 Signs Astrology comes into play at. And I said I was going to give you guys back something. And as you keep watching these videos, it's not going to come through as much clearly on this episode what I'm speaking of, like how you can benefit. But just keep watching and you'll learn how you can benefit. But first, I got to tell you a nice amount of information about a few different things before we can get to the final point. So there'll be a few episodes coming over the next couple days to finish this out. Because you guys know like how I am about airtime and not spending too much time every day. But I'll try to get one more today. I'm not promising, but definitely by tomorrow, as long as there's no major annuities, I'll finish it up. But we were able to move into the bandwidth aspect of the internet and have some pretty major partners in finance invested into it. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars here, or millions of was credit, but now it's actually turned into money. That's what I'm kind of like announcing here. And at some point, really soon, for what I'm thinking, it's going to get to a point where we'll be able to like help a lot of people that's been watching the videos, that's going through financial situations. We want to eventually going to turn this into. We'll never give out loans in the school of thought. We don't give out loans at all, but we will aid and assist soon. I'm thinking with this program and the way that's going to be set up because it's going to have to turn into cash with the amount of credit that we got tied in and what I'm monitoring right now based on the contracts that I'm slowly moving into. So like when you watch these videos, period, you're already assisting and can gain assistance if you know what you're doing through advertising dollars where you're at from just watching these videos, like starting now. Like I don't care if you were in I'm targeting, like for instance, in this video, I really want this to be directed towards South Carolina. So let's just use that for an example. And we may name it something like that. Just for this video, because I'm trying to explain to you how bandwidth works. And that's a hot point for us right now. And we got people down there to watch the video. So like if you're from South Carolina or something like that, just leave it in the comments or something like, yo, I'm from South Carolina. I don't know if I'm going to name this video something about South Carolina or not for real, but it's definitely targeting South Carolina. But if you was in South Carolina, I want to go ahead and finish up. And you were watching this video, you can gain credit as well as you're giving credit, period, from the viewership of it because of the way this channel is designed. And they say, well, a lot of channels are like that, but you guys know, usually when you watch my videos, for the most part, no monetization was ever I don't put monetization on the channel or whatever. However, of course, everything on the internet costs. So we're tied more so into bandwidth or what they would call the dark aspect of the internet that people don't really see. And they're like, that's not worth anything. That's almost kind of like bandwidth is kind of to some people like the garbage disposal of the internet or something because they don't understand it and what it is. Like, what the hell having money in that? That's nothing. If only you knew. It's very lucrative. But getting into the bandwidth aspect, this is the part like where people, it's a part of the internet like a whole that's like you doing, like say for instance you sending money online and you're doing this online and you're on Twitter, even when you're not just sending money, but you're just always online, get like tweeting and talking and doing this, you create a lot of monetization, like extra money that's just out there. And a lot of people can't access it and trade off of it because it gets deep. The bandwidth thing is so deep they can monitor, like if you have an ID, say for instance you bought your phone with an ID and then you're trading off your phone, but you went when you got your service, they asked you for an ID, right, to get a service usually. So your ID is tied into your phone. You don't know this. So when you're trading, you're not going to get as much money off of trade. So what I did, I had to make myself through the school of Tehuti into like a example. So like in my example, I'm getting very high rates from the same trades that people are doing because of my situation. I've made myself a sovereign through studying the school of Tahuti. So like I went through an extra ritual to not just be out here monetizing, as I was explaining on a few episodes before. When some people get into that like money laundering and cleaning money and all that type of stuff, they call that a form of monetizing, which they say is illegal. But that's a process that's actually legal on an international level. They call it money laundering, of course, on the United States level, because you got IDs doing it, and that's a whole nother subject, but it ties it kind of into this because there's certain levels of bandwidth of moving units on the internet that it's a lot of money just sitting out there in a black hole that nobody sees. From you just sending money here and nobody's monetizing on is what I'm saying. That could be extra money and that could turn into something. You call it nothing on a certain level. And that's what we move. And it happens through your sexual experiences. Oh yeah, this goes through the internet. Now how? I'm having sex. What the hell they got to do with the internet? You in a house doing it, you create more energy when you bust a nut off to explain this to you and taught you guys this. That could power a city when you do that. Like they've proved that scientifically. So if all that energy is going on, don't you think some smart person out there is storing it? Oh yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're nesting off of it. And I'll talk about that in the future. But we got money invested in all of that to offset that because that turns into negative debt or extra money for billionaires and millionaires to just sitting back living off of it because they didn't. Nobody else was monetizing on it, so they figured that's what they would do, and they don't understand how to get it. A lot of them don't. Even these billionaires, they're just paying companies. We're attracting like clients. I got a client right now that's probably a billionaire. I gotta go into all of that, but like we got clients that's billionaires too. I mean, myself personally. So like that's nothing on a certain level, but I'm just saying like a lot of people got rich off of just this bandwidth aspect of it or whatever. So like I learned all of this through, of course, like I said, I had a background in marketing. So of course I understand this on a different level. And there's what I'm speaking to you about as far as bandwidth. Of course, techies out there can take you deeper into it. Of course, it's much deeper than what I'm explaining, but I understand it enough to have made money off of it and still am making money off of it and to now be able to give and receive credit for people just watching the videos and targeting certain areas. And even if I physically go there, that increases the rate, or whether I just have people viewing from a remote type of way. Like, say, for instance, we get people from South Carolina to leave in the comments, hopefully. That will prove that we got some people down there watching it, which creates a better rate for me. So that's what I want to eventually do. So um, I don't think I'm going to put South Carolina in the title for real. I want to be able to get feedback to see if someone actually responds from there. I think that would be the best way to do that and make the rate better. Hopefully by tomorrow we'll get look over the comments and see. But I'm basically explaining to you guys eventually this channel is going to turn into a goal of mine from just watching this channel and being able to independently own it. Like you'll be one of the owners from viewing it or being a subscriber to it. You'll be one of the owners haphazardly. Everybody's rich, like I said, in your area. I'm not in your area. You may be out in the middle of, we need people like I'm going to be talking about some Midwest so-called states in a minute because what I'm going to eventually take you into, and I need to say that here, then I got to stop because it's so much, man. But hopefully it doesn't shut down. But I want to eventually get this in here. The states have been secretly refinanced and have been defunded. And people are, of course, on a mass commercial level are not going to agree with this and all of this and that. But on the level that I'm speaking on, I know what I'm saying is the truth. And there's certain now what they're discovering. See, we're going through a rediscovery process in the U.S. And they're going to find out that the way that it's drawn out on the map is not, it's not connected right, and we're running out of airtime. But the way that it's drawn out on the map, if you was to do that, you're going and crossing over to people's lands and territories, and there's monies that would have to be paid, and what you would consider like a toll. There's rand notes that would have to be paid in exchange. What I was teaching you guys about rand and certain financial currency exchanges, even going into international currencies, francs, that would have to be exchanged to legally say that you control this area. So they use corporate and federal laws and codes that even have been defunded. So what I'm doing with this is going to help to you to understand that, but also to contribute into rebuilding the net so that the money will flow more smoother. That's what we eventually use in this channel for. Hopefully, we'll have many millionaires over time as this goes on, and many people that may get more views from this, but it will always be connected through this intranet that our channel is designed through some international contracts that we now have scored through the soccer and things of that nature. So thanks to Tehuti, the female Tehuti I are going to next, taught me the rest of the school about the real estate aspect and the video properties and how to actually go into that aspect of it. So the male Tehuti taught me the air. Now we're gonna go into the female Tehuti. So I can thank you guys for listening and watching. It's gonna shut down. You guys stay vigilant. Namaste.